another section of Roar of the Ganges. This is a book gifted to us by our Sanghi, Sky Guardian. It was his guru that wrote this book, and by his blessing he has allowed us to read it for everyone. We were in the middle of discussing the nature of religion versus spirituality, belief versus knowledge, as well as the relationship between all of those things and the Vedas, humanity's oldest scriptures. We ended on a point that from the, was it Manduka Upanishad, there was a story of this spiritual seeker called Shaunuka, who approached the celebrated sage Angiras on the nature of knowledge, the highest of all knowledge. And we got into a discussion of how lower knowledge can only live to temporary happiness, including heaven. And that's a big idea, that heaven actually falls into the category of temporary happiness, at least according to Vedic thought. According to the doctrine of karma, one goes to heaven due to accumulated grace called punya. But the punya earned through rituals is limited. Finite deeds, including rituals, can yield only finite results. The quantity of punya that carries souls to heaven is gradually expended through heavenly enjoyments. When that grace is completely exhausted, those souls will fall from heaven to be reborn again. Going to heaven could be compared to a vacation in Hawaii. First, you work hard to save money for the trip. Then you enjoy a splendid holiday using your savings. But when your last dollar has been spent, the vacation is over. You have no choice but to return to work. According to the Vedic rishis, these ancient seers, heaven cannot be eternal. Anything that has a beginning must eventually come also to an end. For this reason, Angiras had only harsh criticism for those who considered heaven to be the supreme goal of life. His words, not mine. Those ignorant people think they have gained the highest goal. They perform rituals compelled by their desire for heaven, not knowing that they will fall from heaven once their grace is exhausted. But Angiras praised those who seek a teacher for the sake of realizing the highest truth. It was he who uttered the well-known verses we saw earlier in the book. A person of wisdom who considers the limits of everything gained through life's empty labors abandons vain striving when one understands mere action leads not to lasting fulfillment. To realize that goal, may one duly approach a competent teacher who not only knows the scriptures complete, but also abides steadfast in reality, in fullness, in peace. The morning passed as quickly as Raj and I sat on the bench talking, to whom this debate between knowledge and belief has been happening through. When Raj excused himself to return to his room, I shifted to a shady spot near the temple where I could enjoy the sparkling play of the Ganges without getting scorched by the sun. Thinking about our conversation, I recalled the tremendous confusion and frustration I once suffered when religious beliefs and spiritual truths were mixed together in my mind without distinction. I wanted spiritual knowledge, not another belief system. But the two often seemed so intertwined that I was unable to differentiate them. What I eventually learned was this: truth, by definition, is universal. There is no such thing as Indian truth or American truth. 2 + 2 = 4 in all cultures and situations. Therefore, even though the world's religious and spiritual traditions differ vastly with respect to their beliefs, the truths they express, if they are actually true, must be universally valid. The truth revealed by the teachings of Vedanta is not unique. The same truth can be found in the teachings of Christian and Sufi mystics, as well as those of Taoist and Buddhist masters. The multiplicity of religions, philosophies, and spiritual teachings does not establish a multiplicity of truths. It only reveals that truth can be expressed in many ways. Truth is one. The wise speak of it in various ways, is a frequently quoted saying. We might figuratively say that truth can be packaged in many ways, in many containers. Misunderstandings arise when we confuse the packaging with the contents, that is, when we fail to differentiate the religious trappings of a tradition from the spiritual truths it contains. Vedanta comes from a culture permeated by Hindu religious customs. Most traditional teachers of Vedanta were born and raised in that culture. For this reason, Vedanta is usually presented in a thoroughly Hindu cultural context. As a result, the teachings of Vedanta become interwoven in a matrix that contains Hindu religious beliefs as well as teachings of universal truth. This interweaving of universal and cultural aspects inevitably leads to confusion. Religious beliefs are mistakenly elevated to the status of universal truths, and universal truths are mistaken for religious beliefs. For example, reincarnation is sometimes considered to be a universal truth, yet it is clearly a matter of belief. It can never be proved or disproved. This does not imply that one should not believe in reincarnation, but only that beliefs should be recognized as such and not confused with universal truths. Similarly, Atma, the Self, is sometimes misunderstood to be a matter of belief, instead of a universal truth. Due to this error, some fail to make an effort to actually discover the Self, Atma, as the ancient rishis did. A further problem for me was my utter unfamiliarity with the cultural context in which the teachings of Vedanta are found. Hindu culture baffled me at first. Its ethnic expressions seemed strange to me. Travel to India gave me the opportunity to become intimately acquainted with Vedanta's Hindu context and helped me breach the cultural barriers that once confounded me. Yet, for many students of Western origin, the foreignness of India's spiritual traditions continues to be an obstacle. Most do not have the opportunity to travel to India, nor should it be necessary to do so. When Vedanta is taught to Western-born students, all cultural barriers must be removed. These teachings should be set free from their cultural trappings and presented unencumbered by extraneous materials. And let us pause our reading there for tonight. A good point. Set of points, really, on the distinction between religious context, ritual or practice, and universal spiritual truths, which are often interwoven and hard to separate.